Good afternoon, everybody. I think everyone is probably in an afternoon time zone right now. I'm Dan Egan. I'm one of the CORD board members at large and the liaison to the CORD Connect series. And we're here today with a special session on the application platform that we're looking at from CORD. And we have members of our application process improvement committee here to provide us with some information. If for those of you that were at ASAP, you saw some of this already with our colleagues, and we're just happy to provide this additional format for everyone. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Smith and Dr. Fallon.
Thanks so much, Dan. Yes, hi, my name is Lisa Smith. I am the current chair of the Application Process Improvement Committee. I am the clerkship director and one of the associate program directors at Bay State Medical Center, which is an affiliate of UMass Chan Medical School. And Tim?
Tim Fallon. Good afternoon. I'm the associate program director at Maine Medical Center and academic faculty at Tufts University Medical Center, and the vice chair along with Aaron McDonough of the APIC committee.
All right, so we want to start by acknowledging that we're presenting today on behalf of the Application Process Improvement Committee and the work of many more people than just the two of us. So we want to acknowledge the work of the CORD BOD and their support, the rest of the APIC leadership team that you can see here, and truly the entirety of APIC, whose rich conversations and ideas are really the groundwork of this entire effort. Next slide, please. So as you probably know by being here, CORD announced at ASAP that it's decided to partner with ResidencyCAS to help us develop our own platform specifically designed to support our emergency medicine residency application process. We recognize that the announcement of the ResidencyCAS partnership came as a surprise to many, but actually it's the culmination of almost a year of work, and it's really important to us that everyone understand the background work that got us to this place and have the opportunity to ask questions and voice concerns. For those of you who weren't at the ASAP Town Hall, today's session is going to cover much of that same content. And for those of you who were there, I'm hopeful that the spaced repetition might offer some new insights and fruitful discussion at the end. Next slide, please. So as an overview, we're going to cover the foundational work that went into deciding to move forward with this partnership, establishing the motivations for making a change, and why we've selected ResidencyCAS as our partner. We'll then go into some depth about the ResidencyCAS platform itself and the ways that we think it can address many of the concerns and dissatisfiers that we have with our current process. Next slide, please. So just as background, what the Application Process Improvement Committee does is we're committed to the ongoing assessment of the application process within emergency medicine. Some of our recent efforts include the introduction of program signaling in EM and recent scholarship describing the program director experience with signaling. And through our representation and collaboration with the AAMC and ARIS, we've provided updates on application and match data, including demographics, to help offer evidence-based guidance to programs and applicants throughout the application cycle. And we were the drivers guiding the EM community on virtual interviewing and recruitment as a response to COVID, and are continuing best practice guidelines for the application season. Next slide. So it was with this lens that when OBGYN announced their departure from ARIS for the 2025 season, with the CORD BOD's approval, APIC began investigating alternate platforms, really getting a lay of the land and exploring the different options in an increasingly diverse application landscape. Next slide. So I want to offer that we all went into this process skeptically, just as I imagine many of you are, honestly, about OB's decision, and truly with no idea what we were going to find. So we are already familiar with the current ARIS system and the updates that they've made over the last few years. And through the AAMC's formal partnership with Thalamus, they've made a continuous effort to improve the integration and user experience. And we were curious about what this year's updates would look like. And we'll touch on this a little bit more shortly. We also looked into Central App, which is the platform developed by plastic surgery, which has now expanded to some other specialties, particularly anesthesia. And although that platform has a really smooth interface and a lot of great features, as a smaller company with fewer resources, Ultimately, we didn't feel that its growth to scale structure and its limited phased rollout structure was the right plan for emergency medicine. And then there's ResidencyCAS, which is the platform that OBGYN transitioned to and which we're going to be spending most of our time talking about today. Right, next slide. Before we get to that, though, we want to mention the conversation that we had with Dr. Maya Hamoud and Dr. Anne-Marie Connolly, who's the Chief of Education and Academic Affairs with CREAG, at the very beginning of this process. Right? We wanted to start by understanding the motivations behind the OBGYN transition and really learned that this process started back in 2019 as part of OB's Reimagining Residency program, or their 3R project, right resident, right program, ready day one. So much as we do in EM, OB was really committed to bringing an evidence-based approach to the residency application process with a focus on equity for both students and programs. So their transition was actually the culmination of a gradual standardization process, starting with standardized dates, followed by the development of a specialty-specific OBGYN SLO, and finally the transition to this new platform with a customized specialty-specific application. Next slide. So in our conversations with them, it really came down to the fact that ARIS was just not able to be responsive enough or customizable enough to meet their needs with regards to gathering and sharing the data that was important to them as a specialty. So as an example, OB was a leader in the field of program signaling, and they expressed frustration to us about the lack of partnership when it came to ARIS's not sharing signaling data in a way that would have allowed them to offer evidence-based guidance to their programs. They discussed their concern over the frequent turnover of program leadership and emphasized the importance of easing the burden of this process that dominates so much of the year for a program director. They cited frustrations with the user interface and the limitations of the ARIS platform for incorporating data analytics into the applicant recruitment process in a way that would facilitate holistic review. And they also cited easing the burden for applicants in the realm of cost, but also in terms of user interface and ease of use of a platform. And ultimately, it was the challenges their specialty faced in the wake of the Dobbs Supreme Court decision, noting that ARIS just couldn't adapt to the specific workforce needs of their specialty as the final straw that drove their departure. Next slide. So Dr. Hamoud and Dr. Connolly really emphasized the importance of drilling down on the driving forces, right? Why would making this change for EM be important? What are the issues or problems we are facing as a specialty? And they encouraged us to evaluate platforms through that lens, right? Which one would make the best partner in addressing those specific issues? So with the help of the greater APIC committee, these are the 4 whys that we came up with, right? It's improved student experience, reduce burden on program directors, customizability, technology and support structure, and data. Next slide, please. So with regards to an improved student experience, we clearly wanted to reduce the cost to applicants, but we also wanted to simplify the application itself, smoothing out the process of data entry and allowing functionality across a range of browsers and devices. We also wanted to bring the process of interview offers, acceptance, and scheduling within a single system instead of the patchwork of applications that make up the current workflow, right? When we would engage students and ask what they wanted most out of this process, so many of them said, we just want it in one place. Next slide. For program directors, we wanted to simplify the experience of applicant review to allow easier visibility of relevant data and improved capabilities for sorting, assigning, scoring, and tracking applicants throughout the review process. We wanted to make the process of reviewing applications easier and faster while still incorporating tools to support holistic review and create new data fields relevant to EM-specific characteristics and the needs of the EM workforce. We also wanted to reduce disparity for programs who can't afford software add-ons. And similarly to the patchwork that exists for students, we want programs to be able to host the entirety of the process, right, from application review to interview scheduling to interview hosting under a single platform. We felt that it was really important to be able to customize the EM application based on the unique needs of our specialty, right? This could mean adding specialty-specific questions or eliminating portions of the application that don't really enhance our process, regardless of what other specialties are choosing to do for themselves. And it could allow us to identify attributes that were predictive of success, particularly in EM, and seek those out. It was also important to us to have access to a robust technology support, and specifically, we wanted no downtime, ever. And possibly most importantly, we wanted a platform which would allow us real-time access to program-specific and specialty-specific data. Right, under the current ERA structure, our specialties data belongs to the AAMC, and we're constrained by their timeline and their responsiveness to our requests for that data to be able to share it with you. Right, this reliance has resulted in significant delays, often on the order of multiple months, with data requested in the midst of an application cycle not being released until after a match, for example, where it's significantly less impactful. With the recognition that the EM applicant pool is in a period of change, having reliable access to our specialty level data will continue to be a critical piece to allowing programs to adjust their application review and interview offer approaches in real time, which can meaningfully impact match success. We've seen that, right? Having these data can also allow data-driven student advising and open up avenues for specialty-specific application scholarship. Next slide.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. And I will say before I get started, this is my first time speaking on a webinar. And so I apologize. Brad Bunny asked a question and I thought I was going to type in the answer, but I clicked the wrong button. But if you could clarify, he was just asking like who we could send feedback about ResidencyCAS to. If you could just clarify that with an updated comment, that'd be great. And then I can help you. If it's like feedback around current experience, you can certainly relay that through us and we can relay that back. If it's wanting to be engaged with the process of making an application, then we're going to get to that because that's the key, is we really want engagement of this community. I think before we talk about CAS, I do want to take a minute to talk about the AAMC and Thalamus and acknowledge that this year there is now a formal collaboration between the AAMC and Thalamus that many of us have experienced. When we gave this last talk, applications had just opened 2 days prior. We've now had the opportunity to work in this application season. And I will say, you know, my program at Maine Med, we've used the full suite of Thalamus products now. I believe this is year 4. So I feel like I have a good degree of experience working with them. And we as APIC, as well as us as individuals, will continue to work closely with Thalamus and the AAMC to kind of explore and maximize the opportunities that exist within that platform. Prior to this year, Thalamus existed as a third-party software add-on. And so that did create challenges in previous iterations related to the fact that data existed within ERAS or PDWS, and Thalamus only really had access to that data through the process of downloading, uploading, and abstracting from PDFs. And they have certainly worked diligently over the last couple of years to improve the process of extracting that data from PDFs, but there remain limitations. Most notably, individual data fields really could not be easily transcribed between the application and our review portal. We had to kind of extract data in certain aspects, such as the SLOs, as many of you experienced, the MSPE, the transcript, really only exist in PDF format. Moving forward and including this year, there's now an API or an application program interface that exists between the AAMC and Thalamus. And for someone like myself that is not an IT person, what that means is basically discrete data fields map from one software platform to the next. So rather than a PDF being downloaded and uploaded, individual data fields such as name, AAMC number, email are all mapping directly across. And I will say in this year, they have been able to remove the 24-hour lockout that existed for those of us that were transferring applicants into Cortex. And so now applicants move in real time with discrete data fields. Thalamus this year also released their holistic review tool, which many of you may have heard about. This is really, to my mind, a competency-based scoring tool. They've created the opportunity to build specialty-specific competencies and then program-specific competencies. So you can identify domains where you feel that where you want to evaluate, and then questions within those domains. But ultimately, this is really just a scoring tool allowing you to create multiple unique questions. It does allow you to score different aspects of the application across different areas or by different reviewers, and then ultimately combine those and carry those scores through your application process. So from initial screening to applicant review to interviews to your ultimate rank list. The products that exist for free as part of the AAMC Thalamus collaboration are CORE, Itinerary Wizard, and Cerebellum, and many, if not all of you, have probably been working with these. CORE is their version of a program director platform that allows you to visualize applicants to your program. It allows you in some ways to score applicants, to sort your rank list. It does allow you to send invites and then manage the interview process. What it doesn't do particularly well is allow you to read and review applications with an eye towards identifying those data points that are most relevant to you. Really, the only way to review an applicant in Thalamus Core is to open the PDF and read the PDF. They also include Itinerary Wizard, which allows you to create interview days, assign applicants, obviously offer interviews, and manage that process, including wait lists. And then Cerebellum is included, which is the Thalamus data analytics tool that allows some view of information mostly about your program. So it allows you to see applicants to your program. You can track specifics such as like DEI or underrepresented in medicine applicants to your program across the interview season and see how you're doing in terms of receiving applications, offering interviews, interviewing, and matching. And it allows you to just look at different things like signals and geography. What it does not, or at least has historically not done, is allow you to see data about the specialty as a whole. I think as we've thought about this process, that is a real area that we're hoping to improve, where on day one of the interview season, you have the ability to see who has applied to emergency medicine this year, how does our application season look, how do we think about our application season, the needs of our program, the needs of our specialty, and who's going to be a good, viable candidate for our program this year. In terms of the other tools that they offer, those are fee-based currently, and that includes Cortex and Video Interview. Cortex is really their applicant review portal, and this is where they have been able to abstract specific data fields and present them in a more digestible or reviewable manner. And so as we're reviewing applicants, right, you can click through and see their experiences, you can see their grades. This is still limited, though, at least in its current iteration, by the fact that many of these data points are only available within a PDF. So the SLO is a PDF document that transfers over. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up. Similarly, their MSP is a PDF document that you can open. What my understanding is, based on the discussion from the AAMC yesterday, is that they anticipate making Cortex available as a free portion of the Thalamus AAMC collaboration for next year. Video Interview is their video interview platform that allows you to schedule, send links, and then host video interviews seamlessly within their platform. And as I'm aware, as of today, I'm not aware of that being offered for free next year. They are doing a pilot currently with ortho, PM&R, and urology that I do think impacts kind of these decisions, where they're providing the whole suite of products to every program. So that's going on this year. So we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about ResidencyCAS. And please, if questions come up along the way that are kind of relevant, Lisa, you can just kind of interrupt. That'd be great, or we can field them in the text. This is going to be kind of an initial view for many of you. I will say there's going to be tremendous opportunity moving forward to engage in this discussion, to spend time with us and representatives from Liaison, which is the company that owns ResidencyCAS, and really both become familiar with this product, educate yourself about how to use it, and engage in the process of kind of creation of the application. So to give some background, ResidencyCAS is a residency application platform. CAS is a centralized application service. And so that is similar to the ERAS or other applications like the Common App. It just means that there is one application where applicants can come, create an application, and then apply to multiple programs. This is a product from Liaison, which is an application solutions company. They've been in business for 30 years. They serve 31 health professions, including, as I understand, all of the applications to DO medical schools in the country, multiple veterinary and dental schools. They currently manage the entire University of California system, which is 23 campuses, with the ability to have a standardized application as well as unique applications to each of those campuses. And they've been able to process over 300,000 application submissions in a single day without downtime or any IT challenges. They do previously have experience with matching processes. They've managed the psychology match into graduate training, as well as the pharmacy residency match for the last few years. And they, on an annual basis, process about 3.75 million applications per year. They have created the ResidencyCAS in consultation with OBGYN. And this year, OB has 100% adoption for ResidencyCAS. I did see a question about programs coming back to Thalamus from OB. My understanding, which is not full, is that there are some programs that have chosen to have Thalamus accounts. That does create some challenge for the applicants in that they will be asked to create a Thalamus account. But as best I understand from some of the sessions that I've been to, what they're offering really to the obstetrics programs, and we'll kind of see how this plays out later, is they're offering their interview scheduler and their virtual interviewer. And so some programs may choose to transfer applicants over to that and then offer interviews through thalamus seems to be kind of what's going on at the moment. But we're going to continue to kind of explore that so we can better understand what those challenges may be and how we can address them moving forward. Talking further about CAS, so they have a scaled fee structure for applicants. They incorporate reduced cost for certain applications or for certain applicants from certain backgrounds. That is similar to what ERAS does, although as we'll see, their overall cost structure reduces the cost burden on applicants. They have no fee for programs, and that includes all of their software platforms. And so that includes their applicant review, their program director dashboard, the applicate side, the med school side, their letters of evaluation, their interviewing, their virtual interviewing, everything's included within their platform with no cost of programs. They do historically have a program for reinvestment of revenue into the specialty or into the sponsoring institution. And so that's a program that over the first 3 years increases from 10% of net revenue up to 20% of net revenue that would potentially come back into the specialty. And while this is not something that we had sought out, it is notable that traditionally the AAMC takes all of the revenue associated with applications to residency programs, and none of that money comes back to emergency medicine or other specialties. And so this is potentially an opportunity to increase the increased flow to emergency medicine and use those funds to expand emergency medicine, better match residents to the right program, improve aspects of the applicant pool. That's kind of yet to be figured out. They do have program signaling integrated, and they have established interfaces with all the necessary organizations, including the NBME, NRMP, ECFMG, and the SOAP process. Some of the things that we like just kind of at a broad view of ResidencyCAS is that it's very usable. The experience is improved across all platforms. It's accessible on Mac, PC, iOS, Android, and tablet. It allows for a customized application both to residency and by specialty. And so we do have the benefit that OBGYN has created an application for residency that I think will be a very good starting point for us and will reduce the work burden of creating an EM-specific application. But at the same time, we have the ability to create an application to emergency medicine that highlights those attributes in a trainee that are going to be best in terms of success in a training program in emergency medicine. And it also creates the opportunity for individual programs to be specific around those data points that are relevant to them and highlight those for their reviewers. And then finally, they have a very liberal data sharing policy. They believe that the data belongs to the specialty. They provide real-time access. They will support creation of multiple dashboards, and then they will support us in kind of evaluating and processing that data, but they really feel that the data belongs to the specialty. And although we have seen this year that the AAMC has been more responsive in terms of releasing data about applicants to the field, this historically has been quite a challenge. And some of my colleagues on the committee who've been working both in terms of the application process improvement, but also in terms of educational scholarship have found that turnaround time for data from the AAMC can be on the order of 6 to 12 months, if not longer, when they're trying to kind of evaluate things such as how a program signal has been rolled out in emergency medicine, what does the pool of applicants to emergency medicine look like? And so we see this as a big potential benefit. This is the platform. So this is the currently live application to obstetric and gynecology programs. And this has been functioning since coming online live with no downtime. We're going to go through here, but I will say there's going to be an opportunity, as I said earlier, to really spend a lot more time with this. They have a relatively robust sandbox that may be available at some point in the future. And so we have the ability to kind of do an overview here and then spend more time certainly moving forward. The ResidencyCAS solution is really a series of interfacing portals that all interconnect with each other. These are single sign-on and easily linked between the two, so you only have to worry about one logon, and it's easy to navigate between all of these. It all starts really with the med school portal. This is where the dean's office will have access. And similar to the process that happens now with ERAS, the dean's office will authorize the students to create an account and then start their application. Should the student give them permission, the dean's office then also has the ability to follow that student through the application process and potentially see things like, have they completed their application? Have they submitted? How many interviews have they been offered? And potentially, as we establish data into the system, may be able to show them things like, how does this student compare to prior applicants from our school or prior applicants to the specialty, and how have those applicants had success? So that dean's offices can offer more customized mentorship and guidance to students. And that would all be based on the student providing them authorization to do that. That feeds into the applicant portal, which is really where the applicant or the student will spend all of their time. They're going to complete their application. They're going to apply to programs. They're going to review information about programs. They can accept video interviews and then complete the video interviews. The students request letters of evaluation, and those can be done through an evaluator portal. One of the significant benefits to our specialty is that by creating the evaluator portal and creating the SLO within the portal, the SLO will now be, instead of just a PDF document, it'll be a series of data fields and written text that can be abstracted, compared, presented in different ways. And so we think there's a true potential benefit here to be able to utilize the SLO, which has been identified previously as one of the key contributions to an emergency medicine applicant, and one of those things that has the greatest differentiation for us as programs to make it a much more usable and functional document for us. There's the program portal, which I'll review, which is where the program kind of leadership will spend most of their time. And then feeding into that, there's a review portal where applicants are reviewed in a kind of much more digestible way, and an interview portal. So all these interconnect seamlessly. As we look at the applicant portal, this is really broken down into 4 domains. And again, this is built and functioning right now. And so our ability in emergency medicine to customize this without having to reinvent it, I see as a big positive. Applicants work through this in a stepwise approach. You can see that they get kind of a green track bar that shows them how they're doing in terms of completing their application. They work through personal information, their academic history, their supporting information, such as their experiences and hobbies, and then program materials. And that's kind of where we could do things like create the SLO portal and things like that. This is pretty straightforward for the applicants. Once they've entered their school, they then have the ability to send communications back and forth to the school. And one of the things that was notable to us was, this is usable again across all platforms, Mac, PC, but also iPad, iOS, and Android. And across all of the programs that Liaison manages, they're finding that up to 30% of applicants are completing their entire application on a phone. So now that's not applicants specifically to medical school or residency, but it does suggest that more and more of our applicants are doing this across platforms, and we want to be able to meet them where they're at with a platform that's designed to function equally across those devices. Within their portal, they have the ability to request test scores directly from the USMLE and COMLEX. They can pay, and then they'll see in real time that those scores have shown up, and then they can know that they can release them to the programs. They also have the ability this way to request letters of reference or SLOs and their MSPE. I'm sure many of you are aware there's been some reasonable concern about the release of digited COMLEX 1 scores over this interview season. So the COMLEX 1 has gone to step fail, but applicant scores were released as numeric values. And that really comes down to the way that they were released by COMLEX to the portal. And so moving forward, they will be released just as pass-fail scores, which is how they were reported to applicants. And certainly moving forward, that's how they'll be presented in ResidencyCAS to programs. And ResidencyCAS has been incredibly responsive in resolving that issue, which is really driven by the way the scores were presented from COMLEX. This is the big win for applicants, I think, in addition to this platform being highly usable, is that the cost burden on our applicants goes down. So both ResidencyCAS and ERAS offer a tiered fee structure, and they both offer fee assistance for those applicants that, such as those that receive a Pell Grant or have other financial need. But if we just look at the fee structure in ResidencyCAS, the first 18 programs are $99. After that, it's $18 per program, and then $23 per program after 31. The average applicant to emergency medicine last year applied to 46 programs, and that would be a fee of $683 to the student. If we look at ERAS, they pay $11 per program for the first 30. After 31, it's $30 per program, and that same average 46 applications was $810. And so the potential cost saving for an average applicant to EM applying to 46 programs is $127 going with ResidencyCAS. This is the program director portal. This is the landing page for you as a program director or for your leadership. You can see your applicants to your program at a glance. You can see how many you received, how many you reviewed, how many interview offers you've made. Just like the rest of this platform, this entire page is customizable, so you can move these around or put in other modules here. To the top right, you can see that you're tracking goals in terms of how many interviews you've offered. You can follow specific tracks or tags, such as if you're looking at couples matches or military matches to your program. You get data around signals, and then you can see different data around distribution of applicants to your program by degree, by geography, by whatever kind of criteria you want to look at. So this is really just the landing page. This then feeds into your list of applicants. You can see all your applicants to your program here. You assign them to reviewers. You can review signals to your program. This is built in already where OBGYN has been a leader with gold and silver signals. And then this platform leads into the holistic review tools that have been created by ResidencyCAS. So in terms of holistic review, on the program director dashboard, there's the ability to use a surfacing tool to help identify applicants that have attributes to your program that you may not have that are going to be successful in your program that you may not have identified otherwise. And this is done using a holistic review tool where there are specially defined domains and then specific data elements within those domains. This, again, was built by OBGYN, but would be customizable to the needs of emergency medicine so that we could identify domains and then specific data element characteristics that we feel would contribute to a successful applicant in emergency medicine, or would identify those applicants that have attributes that we're looking to establish in our program. This, again, is a surfacing tool. So the goal here is that we can move away from screening or setting cutoffs for specific values and move towards a system where we identify positive attributes in our applicants and use the domains to bring them forward so that we can identify those applicants to then read their applications and score them. This is specialty-wide domains. And then within your program, you can modify the weight of those individual domains to bring different applications to the top of your list. I do want to make it clear here that this is not AI or a large language model. This is not kind of abstraction by a computer or prediction about the applicants. This is solely based on data analytics and abstraction of discrete data fields. So if you look at a domain such as distance traveled or experience, that may map to things like being a first-generation college student or having received a Pell Grant that are discrete data fields that the applicant has entered into their application that then we're mapping to these domains. And again, this is not something you have to use, but gives you the potential to potentially screen and bring forward applicants that you might not otherwise have seen or might not have otherwise had the time to read their application. As we move into the review portal, this is really where the applicant review is going to happen, and I think where we have the potential to save the most time. Having just completed our first day of interviews, I think many of us can relate to the experience of reading applications. And we all have the same goal of doing this as holistically as possible and allowing residents or applicants to share those aspects of their experience, their background, and their skill set that are going to make them shine and thrive in our program. And the way that we do this is that as a program director, we can identify and present to our reviewers only those data fields that we feel are most relevant. And we can do it in an easily digestible way where it's really easy to read through this quickly. Use a score that could be a custom score to your program and identify those best applicants. We have the ability in our program, right? We highlight certain things that we think are valuable, and yet we still have faculty who get caught up on other attributes of the program or other attributes of the application that we would prefer not to pay attention to. And we now have the ability to remove those from the data that the reviewers are seeing. So as a program leadership, we can really present the information to our reviewers in a way that's going to allow them to select for those applicants that we're most interested in. And to do so efficiently, I think if we can work efficiently, we can then do a better job of really getting into those aspects of the application that we find value in, reading the slows, reading the personal statement, things like that. There's an interview scheduler. This allows you to build schedules. This can be both automated or manual. There's functionality to create templates for days, to create different types of interview days, to create different pairings. It can automate the whole day, ensure that people are not overlapping or conflicting. There's the ability to both manually and automatically pair. So if you want to pair a military applicant with someone in your faculty member who has military experience, or someone with an interest in EMS with someone who's from your EMS division, that can all be done manually or automatically. This can manage, again, wait lists, sending out the interview invites, automatically or manually placing folks into interviews, and then it manages your whole interview day. And so again, this is all within one platform. And then there's an onboard video interview tool, right? So they use 8x8, which is a software company, but it's embedded within ResidencyCAS and is seamless to all of your applicants and reviewers. It creates all of the links. And so again, they just click through their day and it'll open up the room that they want to be in. Within that room, you can customize what you present to your reviewers. You can present them parts of the application. You can present them a scoring tool. And this is all done, again, within the same platform. So stepping back, that's really the 30,000-foot view of ResidencyCAS. That was quick. Some of us have spent more time with it. There's going to be a lot more opportunity for detail moving forward. And as Dr. Smith's going to talk about, right, thinking about focus groups and other things like that. As soon as I'm done, I'm going to spend some time looking at your questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to address those. And there's be opportunities for full product demonstrations moving forward. Just kind of looking again at the head-to-head, understanding that some of this is evolving as the season goes on. So the cost is a big driver and a big win for the for the applicants. Looking at our average cost for an applicant of applying to 46 programs, their cost is going to go down by $127 from $810 to $683, and that persists kind of throughout the number of applications that they have. In terms of cost of programs, there's currently no cost for programs for ERAS, and certain aspects of Thalamus are included free. But as of this application cycle, Cortex and the video interview platform continue to have a cost to programs, and that creates disparity to programs in terms of their ability to perform holistic review. Moving forward, it sounds like Cortex may be included, but I believe that was just announced yesterday as a potential for next year. If we look at ResidencyCAS, there's no fee to programs, and there will be no fee to programs moving forward. Everything is included, including schedule and an interview platform. And over the next 3 years, there's a 20% net profit reinvestment in the specialty. And then finally, in terms of user support, ERAS has traditionally had Monday through Friday support. Thalamus does offer 24-hour support via email. They have a goal of responding to that in real time. That has not always been my personal experience. It sometimes takes a little bit of time to get a response from them or to get a response that actually resolves the issue, although they always do continue to work through the issue until it's resolved. ResidencyCAS has a robust workforce dedicated to this. They do 24/7 live support via email, chat, or phone. And I think also importantly, they have a very robust infrastructure around onboarding of new specialties or programs or schools. And so we'll do a lot of both team coaching as well as one-on-one coaching to bring people up to speed. And one of the things, as I understand that they've done with OBGYN, is to pair individual programs or coordinators with kind of specific contacts at CAS, so that as they work through the system, they have a go-to contact to ask their questions to that can respond to them in real time. And so we're quite optimistic about the onboarding that they can do for all of those of us engaged in this process. Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Slows, so again, for ERAS, they're currently uploaded as PDFs and only reviewable as a PDF, whereas with ResidencyCAS, we have the ability to integrate the SLO into the platform, and as such, take unique data elements from the SLO, such as, are they entrustable for a certain characteristic, or where do they anticipate they'd be on the rank list, and present those in a much more easily accessible way, potentially compare applicants, or see how an applicant compares in general to their peers. In terms of AI, currently, ERAS is not using any AI integration. Thalamus is using AI data abstraction, which they highlight in their Cerebellum tool, as well as Cortex, which does abstract some data such as scores from your transcript. ResidencyCAS is very clear about the fact that they use robust data analytics, and so they use features that support holistic review and predictive application processes. Currently, what they're doing is allowing us to identify discrete data points through data analytics. Moving forward, they have the ability, as we collect data in our specialty, to provide both forward-looking information both to programs and applicants that helps them compare for an applicant, how do I compare to other applicants who've been successful in the match, and get a much more insight, looking not just at scores and grades, but at their whole application as to what their likelihood of success is in the match and how they should structure their approach. And potentially has the ability for programs to see how does this applicant compare to other applicants who have been successful in my program in the past or have matched successfully in my program, even if they don't necessarily have attributes that are easily visible to me when I'm looking at the application. And then finally, ERAS does not really have a dashboard. Thalamus has Cerebellum, which can present you information about kind of applicants to your program in general, but not specialty specific data. ResidencyCAS has both standard and customizable dashboards with the ability to have specialty specific data from day one, as well as program specific data. They both integrate with the necessary organizations, as well as including the SOAP, which I know has been a question. Every year, ERAS processes about 48,000 applications. ResidencyCAS processes millions. We said 3.75 million. And as was highlighted before, the AAMC owns the data and shares what they want and in a time frame that they would like. They certainly have been more responsive this year, but traditionally have not been as responsive. Whereas ResidencyCAS, the data belongs to the specialty and is available in real time. And then they're available to help us process and analyze it. So that's kind of ResidencyCAS. To get back to the whys, I think, to my mind, we've fulfilled the whys, and I'm going to let Dr. Smith talk about this too, of making this better for applicants, making it better for programs, reducing the cost, improving our ability to have an EM-specific application that's customizable to our needs and can be adaptive to the needs of the workforce moving forward, and to do so with a program that's technologically stable and has no downtime, and then to give us the data that we need as especially to make decisions moving forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. So yeah, just to reiterate, right, going back to the 4 whys, right, the driving reasons that we established for why this change would be important for us as a specialty and what challenges we would be looking to address with a new application platform partner, right? So that first one is improved student experience, right? With ResidencyCAS, we would get decreased costs to our students with improved functionality and integration into a single platform available across a host of browsers, but also devices with a single logon. For reduced burden on program directors, we would get a streamlined interface, ease of use, again, across a single platform, and reduce disparity since the platform is completely free for programs. We talked about customizability and technology and support, and ResidencyCAS is partnering with us to develop an EM-specific application, which would incorporate holistic review driven by data analytics and with 24-hour live support, group one-on-one trainings, and a robust onboarding process, and no downtime ever. And lastly, we talked about data, right? With ResidencyCAS, we would own that data. There would be no gatekeepers and no delays, and we would have real-time access to specialty and program-specific data throughout the application cycle and the ability to strengthen our student advising and engage in application-related scholarship. Next slide. So what does this partnership mean? So truly, this is just the beginning of the conversation, right? The next steps are to engage with you and all the other stakeholders to collaborate with ResidencyCAS and build an EM-specific application that will be ready for implementation in the 2025-2026 application cycle. So over the next couple of months, we will be hosting focus groups where liaison representatives will demonstrate the existing platform, and we'll have open discussion about how we can best tailor it to our own workflow and meet the needs of our program and our future workforce. So we want to assure you that even as we're doing this, we are continuing to collaborate with ARIS and Thalamus, and we'll continue to evaluate the new features and functionality, as well as work with the AAMC to have access to data to share over the course of this cycle. Next slide.
Did it go? No.
No, not yet.
There.
Thanks. Perfect. We understand how critical engagement with the EM community will be throughout this process, and APIC has convened an alternate application work group with the goal of including representatives from relevant constituencies throughout the process. So you'll notice that this work group includes program leadership, but also program coordinators, deans. We have dual training representation, residents and students, as well as dedicated members from the CORD DEI committee. Next slide. And over the next few weeks, keep an eye out for focus group opportunities. So these will come through CORD for sure, but also through other professional society memberships that you might be a part of. And we want you to continue to assess your experience with ARIS and Thalamus this year and sort of use that as a jumping off point for evaluating what change might look like for you. And if you're at an academic institution and you have the ability, we would love for you to reach out to your OBGYN program director colleagues and your deans to get a sense of what their experience has already been with this new platform. And most of all, please continue to stay curious and stay engaged. Your ideas and perspectives are invaluable in this process, and our goal is to move forward with the platform that best meets the needs of all of our stakeholders, and whatever direction our specialty decides to go, we don't want to do it without you. Next slide. All right, you made it. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We know you have questions. Yeah, where would be a good place for us to start?
There's a lot. There's 27 in the chat.
Amazing. I think I have
okay, I'm gonna just kind of jump in.
Before you get started, Cassandra has had her hand raised too. So,
so sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'm new to this format.
I apologize. I did not know my hand is raised. I put my question in the chat. I was just wondering, like, what was the proposed timeline for this change?
That's a great question. Our intent is to move pretty quickly with the development of this platform, with the idea that it would be ready to be rolled out should we decide to go in that direction by the next application cycle, so the 2025-2026 cycle.
Maybe I'll just jump in on some of these. Oh yeah, Dr. Egan, you want to chat? Yeah, you said you'd cover it, so you take care of that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that are much more appropriate for Lisa and Tim. Just in terms of, there were a couple questions related to the finances and the revenue that we would see back. So one of the questions was about specialty versus CORD. So their model is of their profit to give a portion of that back to CORD. And so as a board, we obviously saw that as an area of concern for the membership, that we would potentially be making money on this. As the board, we are committed to keeping costs down for the organization as much as we can. And so the places that we see as opportunities for using that revenue are, one, to try and keep conference costs where they are, to enhance the AA. We've had a lot of feedback about trying to enhance the technology and things at our conferences, which are limited based on the revenue stream that we currently have. We also have CORD Cares, which is our sort of nonprofit arm where we do give out grants and scholarships to individuals who are experiencing either life struggles or potentially victims of the recent hurricanes, as well as some of the travel scholarships and other things that we offer. So we also see that as an opportunity to build that pocket a little bit in CORD Cares for donating. But none of this would be seen as a way to make, CORD have more, higher operating margins or something that would be not benefiting directly to the members or our conferences that we put on. But everything else I will leave to our experts for the software specifics.
I answered one question by text because it seems straightforward, but yeah, you can create like face sheets or really whatever tools we need. The goal will be through engagement with the community and through the process of focus groups to create and map the workflow so that it'll work for everyone. And I think I have not always understood the workflows that Thalamus has been trying to get me to use. And I have not always understood like what a new feature, how I can implement that. And certainly right, that exists with any new tool, but the goal will be that we'll have all the tools we need and that the workflows will be adaptable. There's a question about, does it allow for scoring, interview scoring, rank list development, and rearrangement of the rank list? Yes, this is everything through the process. And so you receive the applicants, you can review, you can like identify them as a program director. You can send ones to certain faculty to review. If you want to have multiple faculty review them, you can. You can compile those scores. You can then send invites, interview, score, put those scores together however you want, and then build your rank list. And then the rank list is just exported directly from here, directly into NBME, correct, Dr. Smith?
I believe that that's the case.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'll offer, there's unlimited, they call them segments, but you're not limited by the number of different categories that you create. And so you can have divisions upon subdivisions depending on applications complete, applications with one slow, applications from international medical schools but US citizen, international from international medical schools Caribbean, like literally as many as make sense to your workflow in a way that allows you to really hone in on who is looking at what applications with what degree of depth throughout the process.
So the data, as I understand it, and there's a couple of questions about data. So the data would belong to the specialty as likely to CORD, but the goal is that that CORD would then engage with members of the CORD community to improve and simplify these processes right around like research projects that people have wanting to get access to the data. And so CORD would develop a process for gaining access to the aggregate data, but some data, including like who has applied to EM this year, how many applicants do we have, how many are MD, DO, IMG, those data points that we as a specialty decide are really going to be relevant to deciding how we approach the application season this year, those are going to be available in real time to every program. So the aggregate data and then data around the applicants to your program. And then kind of higher level data would be available to the specialty, and then the specialty would figure out how we kind of grant access to that.
And Tim, I can't see the chat, so if there are questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can hit question. There's a question thing. Sorry, I'll try to share them again. The cross structure presented this year for the AAMC was the new cost structure. That was the one that we showed you. There's a couple questions about like a playground and opportunities to experience it beforehand. Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. So the next step in this process is to get the platform in front of your eyes, right? So we've been talking a lot about it, but you haven't actually had the chance to see it and see it work. And so that's what those focus groups are going to be. It's going to be a member of the APIC work group and members of Liaison with a live sandbox to show you sort of how this would actually work in real time, in reality. So the goal is for you to sort of understand where your workflow is through ARIS, see what that new platform looks like, and really get a sense of what its capabilities are, and then to adapt the existing platform in CAS to the workflows that make sense for us as a specialty, right? What features would you like to see? How should we structure those different domains that Tim went over as far as what's important to us in emergency medicine? What are the data fields that we find predictive of success within our specialty, so that the platform can really highlight those, so that when we open up our system on day one with our giant pool of applicants, we can really start surfacing the ones that we think are going to be a best fit for our specialty, and then tailored even one step further, a best fit for our program. And so the first step for that is to get the platform in front of you. And then, as Tim mentioned, there is a sandbox. And so there's going to be lots of opportunities for you guys to be able to play around in it and get really group and one-on-one trainings for how this could work for you.
Does it talk to NRMP? Yes, it talks to NRMP. There was a question, and I'm sorry, now I'm getting lost. Oh, there's some questions about like, what are we hearing from OB/GYN program directors and dean's offices?
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons why I think it's really important for each of you guys to reach out to your respective colleagues in that field, because I think a lot of the really specific feedback that we're going to be able to give to CAS about the rollout is really coming from those conversations, right? Because we are benefiting significantly from not being first here, right? OB has already paved the road with regards to creating those interfaces with, right, NBME and NRMP and ECFMG. They also have inroads with every medical school, so they all have sign-ons. And there's definitely been some hiccups, like schools not being able to get in, firewalls preventing data access for different schools. And so a lot of these will have already been troubleshooted when should we go next, but figuring out what those next level frustrations are in a way that will allow us to avoid those same potholes. And so yes, I'm sure that there are little hiccups now and then, in particular people who have had experiences that are dissatisfied. But one of the things that I took away from my conversation with the program director and OB at my shop was the responsiveness of CAS to any concerns and any technological challenges that have come up, sort of that 24/7 live support really being reflective of her experience.
Yeah. And I will say some of what we've heard, although we again want to hear more, is that some programs have been asked to simply have a Thalamus account because at the institutional level they have a Thalamus account, or to migrate applicants into Thalamus so that their institution can track things like home applicants to the program, underrepresented, things like that, that they're tracking within Thalamus more broadly. The current system as presented by Thalamus for those programs involves downloading a CSV file of data points, including name, email, and AAMC number, and then downloading discrete PDFs and then uploading those to Thalamus. So really, if those applicants are using those programs, I believe are using it maybe for interview offers and managing their interview day, but really will only have access to a PDF of that data within the Thalamus platform. There's a question about if we're going to use the OBGYN application. No, the OBGYN application, we're benefit in that they've created an entire residency application, but we have the ability to customize that as a specialty. And that will be part of the work over the next few months, is to customize what are those things that we want to know. Do we see value in the current aspects of the application? Are there additional aspects or things that we could change that would allow us to better identify applicants who will be successful in emergency medicine? So each every aspect of the application is customizable. We could start from scratch. We don't see a need to start from scratch, but they will customize it to be whatever we need it to be.
Yeah, Liaison views their application as a series of 4 quadrants. So 3 quadrants are essentially the same across everyone, right? It's like name, demographics, uploading documents, and then there's that 4th quadrant, and that would be the specialty specific little widget that we would decide how is our application going to be different from OB or any other specialty that might decide to migrate to CAS. And so those 3 quadrants are going to be the same across all specialties, but that 4th quadrant is where we would have the ability to really tailor it to our specific specialty.
There's a question about, are osteopathic applicants using Complex currently using CAS? And yes, they are. All those integrations are built. There's this question about, will med schools be able to issue ResidencyCAS access to students during their 3rd year? So letters of reference and SLOs can be completed, uploaded in a timely manner. My understanding is that we could set whatever date we wanted to make this go live. I do think that they were continuing, as I understand it, to build the application for OBGYN as they were approaching the season of launching it to students, and it was launched successfully. But we anticipate a different timeline where we could really make it accessible whenever we wanted to our students and to the dean's office. And now all of the dean's offices have access because they've been using it for their students applying to OBGYN, or at least we anticipate the vast majority of dean's offices. Are we considering an independent match process within CAS, or one that would allow for an early match or a 2 or 3-step match process?
Those are very forward-thinking questions and not ones that we have considered right now. But I think that you're sort of seeing where the opportunity comes, right? A lot of the work is within our committee and sort of the framework that all of us have been operating in is sort of with the restriction of what we envisioned was possible within ERIS. And then once you sort of take those restrictions away, like what might be possible. And so we are not considering any of those things now, but you're absolutely right. Moving independently to this new platform opens up opportunities to consider and discuss things like that, and the control to be able to enact them without having to seek approval or rely on ERIS and AAMC to make them happen.
And as of currently, the plan is that the match still happens through the NRMP, and that does facilitate a lot of things, including couples match, dual applicants who are applying in 2 specialties, integration with the SOAP process. And so as of the current iteration, as I understand, there's not a plan to move away from the NRMP match process because that part has been working. We get to the point of creating the list, and then similar to how we'd export it from ERAS or Thalamus, just exporting and uploading it to the NRMP. The map fields in terms of the holistic review and preference domains are visible and to program directors. We didn't share them with you here today because that's proprietary to OBGYN in terms of what they've identified as those data points. And so we didn't feel that it was appropriate to share it here today. But those data fields kind of what falls within individual domains are available to EM program directors once we kind of create that and finalize it. In terms of IT challenges and security breaches, Liaison is a pretty large company and spent a little bit of time talking to us about that. They have a robust data security process that, as someone who's not an IT professional, is over my head, but it involves kind of meeting national standards for data security and having a whole team involved with that. So I do feel pretty positive about the way that they've addressed that. And they also have a whole team involved with kind of bringing institutions on board. And so where some of us may have experienced in the past, this website is being blocked by my institution, they have a whole team dedicated to then working with your institution to figure out what are the security details that are needed, how can they communicate around their protocols. And what we understand is that they've been successful in getting this platform into all of the schools that are that have come on board with OBGYN. So I think they've been successful with that in the past. Sorry, give me a second to look through some of the other questions here. I sent you one too in the chat there, Dr. Smith.
I can't see the chat.
So oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, it does talk to NRMP. I think we've covered that. Sorry, I'm just trying to get through here. if we're building an application, what are we continuing to monitor with ERAS and Thalamus? Is it possible we won't move next year or end up having a choice and splitting the process for applicants?
So I think one of the things that I want you all to take away with is that this isn't a done thing. We are partnering to create this application, but whether or not we're going to implement it for the 25-26 application cycle is not a sure thing. And a lot of that's going to depend on the experience with ARIS and Thalamus this year, the experience of OBGYN with ResidencyCAS this year, which we are very eagerly monitoring, and also sort of the perspectives of the many stakeholders in that process. So I think our goal is that whatever we choose to have 100% engagement in that choice, because I think we can all agree that none of us are looking for a scenario where there's some programs in one and some programs in another, and students applying to emergency medicine sort of have this split application. So our hope, and I think I think I can speak for Tim, feel very strongly that there's a lot of benefits to CAS and specifically addressing the areas where we identified the most dissatisfaction and the most need for addressing our specialty specific wants and the future workforce needs. And we, Tim and I, and the rest of the APIC leadership have had time, right, to really explore this and to really come to an informed choice. For all of you, I recognize that this is kind of sudden and like we can't expect you to be where we're at with regards to opinions and feelings, but my hope is that you'll continue to remain engaged with the focus groups and with the discussion so that when it does come down to making that decision as a specialty, everybody feels like they were part of that process and feels like they are able to make an informed decision for which one of these paths feels like the right move for our specialty and our future workforce.
Lisa, if I can also, there's one other thing. I just want to make sure everybody's aware that we, as CORD and emergency medicine, have not given any money to ResidencyCAS. There was a question about if there was kind of financial incentive for them. The decision was made to move forward with these conversations, really, as was just expressed, so that we would have significant lead time to roll something like this out, which maybe it'll take 2 years instead of 1 year based on experiences of OB, et cetera. But building a specialty specific platform, being able to have focus groups. We also will be bringing ResidencyCAS to the CORD Academic Assembly for a demonstration. And also our intention is to still be worked out the details, but likely have them on site available for appointments for people to go there with their staff, see the platform, in addition to the sort of playground stuff that will be available. But we thought that it was important to start the conversations so that we would have enough time to explore, to iterate, to get feedback from OB. And if that takes 2 years in the process, that'll take 2 years. But it's something we had to sort of decide to move forward with conversations, because we couldn't just obviously do this if we decided in March after academic assembly for the next year. So so no financial exchange has taken place at all between CORD and their company.
There are a number of questions here, kind of getting to that idea of, is there a role for waiting a year, and why don't we wait to see kind of how things fully work for OB? And that's feedback that we've gotten and that we'll continue to engage with, and that's kind of where we want to be in terms of talking with the community over the next few months. I do think that that does kind of is predicated on the idea that we have a system that's functioning and meeting our needs currently. And I think some of us, or many of us, feel that the system is not currently meeting our needs or those of the applicants, and has significant cost. And so I do see some benefit in kind of moving away from that system. There's no financial incentive to moving early, but I do think there is probably an early mover advantage in terms of the ongoing engagement and integration in this process that we will see with Liaison. They've been incredibly engaged and responsive and are eager to start sharing this software platform and building it with our specialty. And so I think there is some benefit there. It is also likely that, as I understand it, that OB will likely not go through the SOAP. And so there's been some discussion of like potentially waiting to visualize how this works with the SOAP. But it's not anticipated that OB will go through the SOAP this year. So I don't know that we would really get any information from that.
The other thing that I'm not sure that ARIS and the Thalamus are really allowing students to have their applications evaluated in a way that is really maximizing the amount of effort that they put in and allowing us to really get a sense of who they are and sort of what makes them unique and well suited for EM. And so I think we're doing our students a disservice in staying potentially within that erythalamus system and moving to CAS, where we can really highlight the attributes that are predictive of success, specifically within EM, is really the right move for our students. I'll also offer that where, as hesitant as we are with change management, right? And I recognize that students engage with this system ideally one time. And so not undervaluing their preferences, but they are ahead of the game when it comes to knowing about this. They know what their colleagues are doing. They are very supportive of this potential transition. And so not taking that with a grain of salt as far as us as a specialty looking to bring in and attract potential students. I think that there initially, when we started this process, there was some hesitancy amongst us about what would the students think about this change. Would it reflect on us poorly? Would it make us look unstable? But I think the opposite truly is true, that the students want this. And I think for us as a specialty looking to grow and build upon the gains that we've seen in this year's application demographics data, I think that this is the right direction.
Let me look through here. It will change the SLO process in that the SLO would be created through the evaluator portal. So the evaluator would get an email inviting them to come join the portal. They would then create the SLO. We anticipate it'll be very similar to the current experience, but we have the ability to customize it how we see. The biggest change will be that then rather than just creating a PDF document that's only visible as a PDF, and I in doing this research, saw Dr. Chappelle on here. I know he has come up with a software solution to that. And I tried to read your paper and it was very impressive, but I could not follow a way that I could implement it myself. Kudos to you. But the goal, right, would be it would have discrete data points. So then you could easily, as you're reviewing the applicant, you could see without having to open the whole PDF, like where did they rotate, whatever you want to see, where did they rotate, how'd they do on the entrustable activities, where were they placed on the rank list, what are the comments, and so hopefully see that in a much more accessible way. And the process will change just in the portal that it's in. There is, we've heard this concern about, will the AAMC push back on loss of revenue and encourage deans to counsel people away from emergency medicine? Certainly, I think that's a valid concern. We as a specialty, I think, can work to encourage people to apply into emergency medicine. And from what you understand from OBGYN, that has not been their experience so far to date, and that the dean's offices, have had an appropriate degree of like having to learn a new product, but have kind of adopted this without difficulty. Sorry, I'm just kind of looking through what we've answered. Is there an opportunity, Dr. Smith, to use this as a vSLO platform as well?
I would love nothing more, but currently that is not in the works. But again, the opportunities are many, and I think should we make this switch, I would love to see the vSLO platform get a similar overhaul.
There's a question about there have been a few questions about fee assistance. So the fee assistance program, as I understand, was designed to be very similar in terms of eligibility criteria as the current ERAS process. And that is something that the specialty can have input into.
Yeah, if you Google Liaison as the broader company, it sort of has all these subgroups of different CASs of the different types of application services, and you can see examples from some of their other specialties in schools where they define kind of how that fee assistance program works. And then there's also the AAMC fee assistance program that you can see as well to compare.
There's a question about dual training programs and kind of if we have thoughts as to that.
Yeah, so that gets a little bit murkier and why we felt it was important to have dual training representation on the work group. And, I think it will potentially depend on program by program, right? So for example, EM/IM program where the majority of applications come through IM may make a different choice as far as what platform is best for the needs of their particular applicants than a program, EM/FM where the majority of their applicants come through a primary EM pathway. So I think that is a nuance to the discussion that OB hasn't had the opportunity to really work through ahead of time. So this is one of the challenges that is sort of novel to this discussion for EM, and I think an important conversation to have. And I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out. And I wonder if, depending on the particular dual training path, what platform makes the most sense might actually be different. But I think something that's important to point out that it's anticipated that for the next application cycle for 25-26, so the first one where we would potentially be participating in CAS, it's expected that there will be one of those APIs that Tim mentioned, the interfaces between CAS and ERIS. So should an applicant need to create an application in both platforms to do a dual application, or to do, for example, an application to a dual combined training program, a lot of those data entry workload will not need to be duplicated because of that API. So there will be some platform specific things that they will need to do, but much of that sort of rote entry will be taken care of.
There's a couple of questions kind of that allude to the same thing, which we've kind of been discussing, is does this mean we're doing this next cycle? Is it optional? And it sounds like we're making the change. It's hard to see how there is still a decision given the way it's being described.
And again, we have had ample opportunity to think about this, to get experience with the platform, to really engage with OB leadership and understand the motivations, and come to what we feel strongly is the right move, but that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. And my hope is that by engaging with this process, you all can sort of go through the same evolution that we have, right? Because I truly mean it when I say that we started this process from a very skeptical place, sort of viewing OBGYN as sort of this radical maverick group who are like, what do you mean you're breaking from ERIS? But I mean, truly medicine, right? Allopathic medical schools and residency are pretty much the only healthcare constituents that don't use CAS, right? Medicine, like vet schools, physical therapy schools, pharmacy schools, osteopathic medical schools, everybody else is in CAS. So it's not that we are necessarily, this outlier for leaving ERIS, right? Truly, we were an outlier for staying. So I think that there is a choice to be made. My hope is that by engaging with this process, seeing what this application platform looks like, understanding the motivations, why we think it's important to consider this change, that people will understand why we feel that this is the right move. But ultimately, our goal is to move forward uniformly as a specialty. And like I said, whatever direction we go in, we want to do it 100% engagement, right? We don't want anybody left behind. We don't want to fragment the application landscape for our students. And so it's really important to us that everybody feels engaged and does feel like this is a opportunity to have their perspectives and their concerns heard and addressed in a way where they have input of value in this process.
There's a few questions left. Will we establish our own application fee scale, or is that established by CAS? OB specifically wanted their scale to link to the number 18, given that's how many signals they have.
Yeah, so I think it's important. And one of the things that we asked CAS at the beginning of this was, will this fee schedule change, right? Because we didn't want to enter at one price point and then all of a sudden be compelled to go to a different price point once we were committed. And they were very clear that the price point would not change without input from us and our leadership as a specialty, and that we could consider making a different fee schedule, lowering those prices, changing the, that 1 to 18, right? That's not a random number, right? That has to do with OB getting 18 signals, right? So there's that particular structure was clearly scaled to the OB experience, and that isn't necessarily what we would have to do. So we would have some input into changing that structure, and it wouldn't ever be done without engaging us in that conversation.
Thank you. Someone's asking, and I apologize, I may not fully understand this, but about the spreadsheets in Thalamus that are number focused and are hoping to collate the data they're looking for on each applicant into a spreadsheet. Would you know if it's possible? My understanding, and having worked a little bit in the sandbox, is that you can really customize that program director dashboard and the data fields that you see there. And again, because each aspect of the application is a discrete data field, you will have the ability to put any of those data points kind of on your dashboard. And so you can should be able to create that and then resort by whatever order you want to look in. You can, as Lisa was saying, group applicants, assign them tags, put them into cohorts. So I have found this to be quite user-friendly, and I think it will, as I think about our workflows and the workflows that I understand of many of our colleagues, I think it will really help with them. There's a question about Liaison and their response to the data breach earlier this year, and if we feel like they take data security seriously enough. I am certainly not a data security scientist or expert, but I do feel like in speaking with them, I will say, and obviously they are they are interested in this relationship, but all of our meetings have been with their CEO and their VP of their CAS platform, who's been incredibly responsive, and their descriptions of the systems that they have in place and the structure that they have in place around data security, as someone who's, again, not a data scientist or an IT professional, seem quite impressive, and I think certainly meet industry standards, and they are focused on meeting and surpassing industry standards. So I did feel good about the approach that they had to data security. I think they take it seriously that they're getting, personal information about applicants and about programs. And I apologize, there's a few questions. If you feel like I have not addressed your question, please repost it, because there's a few less. What are we currently hearing about OB and ResidencyCAS from OB program directors and others about ResidencyCAS and their experience? And we may have answered that. I may have gotten distracted by trying to sort through these.
I mean, it sounds like their perspective is that the rollout has gone very smoothly. Again, they had 100% participation. There, I think, on an individual basis, been some areas where there's been hiccups or things haven't worked exactly as planned, or programs have wanted something a little bit different from the way they've been able to manage the functionality within CAS. But I think overall, it's been so far very positive. And one of the reasons why I think it's super important if you guys are able to connect with your OB colleagues to really bring back some of those very discrete asks so that we can provide feedback to CAS in those focus groups for things that we want to see work for us in a way that it might not have worked for OB. But I do think that we're benefiting from a lot of these wrinkles already being ironed out by having sort of this year lead time with OB. So by the time it would potentially get to us, we wouldn't have to fall into those same potholes.
Great. And then the combined programs are already having to undergo a lot of change right now, and this might be asking a lot of them as they're just now being accredited by the ACGME. Just kind of a point of reference. I appreciate you bringing that to us, and certainly the combined programs, as Lisa was saying, are an area that we want to continue to engage with, because I think there's going to be a lot of consideration there. That is kind of all of the questions that I see, but again, if I missed one or you want to repost it, please do. And then we're kind of excited to continue this conversation moving forward.
Yeah, I think just to say the last comment about the OB thing, I think that's totally fair. And we heard that yesterday from AAMC as well, or I guess Thalamus. So we will definitely follow up on that. And I think certainly as the board, I think the other piece that's been asked a number of times is the security breach. And I think we will engage with some of the with our administrative contract with their security team to do an analysis of that as well.
Oh, then Dr. said there's a comment. Can you remind us the most effective avenue for getting involved in the development process?
Yeah, great question. So the next steps are going to be focus groups. So that'll be members of the working group and liaison representatives putting the actual product in front of your eyes. So you'll be able to see how it actually works, what we're talking about when we're talking about segments, and how those holistic review servicing tools work, how you can slide those dashboards, what that does to your to how the applicants are arranged on your screen in front of you, and so that you can really get a sense of what this workflow might look like and how we can best adapt it. So the next steps will be to look out on the CORD listserv, but also the listservs of any of the other professional societies that you might be a part of for opportunities to attend one of these focus groups. And our intent is to have a blitz over the next several weeks so that you'll have the opportunity to see it, to talk about it, to ask questions about it, and to really tailor this to the workflow that you're hoping to see.
And Dr. Burns was just reminding us that in this month's record message, there'll be kind of opportunities to get involved.
Okay, feels like that's probably okay, well, thank you, everybody. This was great. Lots of awesome questions, conversations, and I think obviously a lot for us to think about. And also just want to, again, I know it's been said, but assure everybody, yes, obviously we have entered into this discussion with them about creating an EM specific platform. But you know, we are all doing the same job as all of you. And so if this is not working for OB and there's lots of problems, we obviously are not going to shift everything without ensuring that, you know, we're doing all of our due diligence and everything. And so please come to the focus groups, and please, and especially with the engagement with the platform, I think that will be really helpful for people to see and have a hands-on discussion. And we've made a lot of notes to bring back additional conversations to the committee and to the board. And thanks for being here so late. I know we went way past, but obviously an important topic. Thanks, Lisa and Tim, for being here.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.